Welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, and today I'm talking about the Three of Wands. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. The best way to support the podcast right now is to listen daily, rate, review, and to follow or subscribe in your chosen podcast app. If you're loving the podcast and want to support me further, you can join my Patreon for some behind-the-scenes access to upcoming topics, polls, monthly hangouts, and more. You can always go to my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot for all the latest information related to the podcast and to find the images of the cards I pull in each episode. If you're local to the greater Puget Sound area, I'd love to see you at my next Let's Talk Tarot meetup group event on April 6th at 11:15 a.m. We'll be meeting at the Haunted Farmers Market in South Tacoma. You can RSVP for that in the show notes below. And if you don't already know, I am a sex and relationships therapist, seeing clients virtually all over Washington state. I love working with queer, kinky, poly, and witchy clients who may be struggling with anxiety, chronic pain and illness, communication issues, self-advocacy, and sex. I'm taking on new clients right now, and you can go to my website at CamilleASaunders.com to book a free 20-minute consultation to make sure we're a good fit to work together. If you're interested in my free PDF with the 2025 5-card tarot spread I created just for you at the beginning of this year, you can get that by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date information on upcoming events, presentations, musings, and info and photos of my day-to-day life. The link to sign up for that is also in the show notes, or you can always go to my website and sign in on the pop-up. All right, so we are in season 6 now, and I'm talking all about the Suit of Wands, going through each card, one per episode. If you haven't listened to the other seasons yet, you should go ahead and check those out. In the first season, I talked tarot basics. In seasons 2 and 3, I went through the major arcana and the 4 suits, one per episode. In season 4, I talked about tarot and pop culture, and in season 5, I went through the 13 common tarot spreads. So like I said, now we're into season 6, where I'm talking all about the Suit of Wands. If you want to hear an episode dedicated to an overview of the Suit of Wands, you can check out season 3, episode 10. Today, we're talking all about the Three of Wands. So when we think about images or symbols that are often associated with this card, wands are often depicted like sticks or, like I said, wands. Sometimes they have leaves on them or branches. Sometimes they look like more of a staff, so are quite large. Looking across my different tarot decks, I see some that show sort of like a bonfire type image for this, where it has 3 sticks or wands coming together with sort of like a cinch at the top, in the way that, again, you might start a bonfire by laying logs to sort of congress in the middle. There is often light associated with this card. I'm going to get into it a little bit, but in my Tarot and Astrology book by Corinne Kenner, they talk about that the sun is associated with this card. And so there is often, like in one of my decks, there's a literal fire underneath, so like a bonfire. In another deck, there is this very light colors and orangey, yellow, and like red in the card, sort of showing, and we actually have like a shadow or shadows cast. So obviously there has to be light in order to cast shadows. And in my other deck, it sort of depicts flowers, which of course need light usually in order to bloom as well. And then this card is a lot about preparation. Again, if you think about building a fire, like a bonfire, right, you kind of often have to like put all the sticks together, all the logs together, right, get something to kind of like start or keep the flame while it's small before it can kind of get big enough to burn everything else. So there is this level of like preparation required. Often in like the Rider-Waite-Smith depiction of the card, in the traditional depiction, in that sense, there is like a person, sort of like this. So in the Two of Wands, we had the person is sort of looking at the world, but also sort of like like in this way of like, oh, all this could be mine. And also like looking in the foreground for like, what can I do? How can I sort of expand and take over everything? In this one, it's a lot more of like, I'm looking over everything and I'm trying to decide like, what is my next mission? What journey am I going on? What am I receiving or taking in? So I will have an image on my website, like blog at everydaytarot.com or camilleasaunders.com/everydaytarot, where you can look at the cards I'm talking about today. I am looking at the Sassarabita Tarot deck by Stasia Burrington, the Therapist Who Tarot deck by Drea Bloom and Rebecca Bloom, and the Ophidia Rosa Tarot deck by Leela and Olive. To look at the Three of Wands across those different cards. And in the Ophidia Rosa Tarot deck, in the Tarot deck guidebook description, there's about one phrase, often like a poetic phrase associated with each card. And so for this one, it is with stems in a string, carry the spring. So again, we have this sort of level of like, we're preparing. I am recording this during Aries season, so springtime. We just had the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. So we literally have spring sprouting out right now. We have stems, we have sort of the way that they come together in these images, and then we also have whatever sort of coming from the wand, so flowers or fire or light or sort of creative energy. In my Library of Esoterica tarot book by Toshin, they talk about the Three of Wands as being about momentum, creativity, and planning. The Three of Wands offers encouragement to push through challenges and explore new paths. So we're also going to be looking a bit through the book Tarot for Change by Jessica Dorr. And this is sort of the subtitle is Using the Cards for Self-Care, Acceptance, and Growth. So this person is a therapist, and so they sometimes approach the tarot from like a psychotherapy lens. So I'm going to read a bit of this description as well. And again, they sort of talk about the common depiction of the card, which is like a person, maybe using the wands more like a staff, and that their back is to us as we look at them, and they're sort of looking out over a horizon, like in some cases like an ocean or like a landscape, sort of trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to explore next? What challenges are going to come up for me? How do I continue on this journey? So Jessica Dorr talks about that, that their friend, a therapist, Charles Hatman, once told them that a counselor is usually doing one of two things in the therapy room: supporting the client or frustrating them. He told me this over dinner, and I looked at him confused. Supporting, yes, but why on earth would anyone pay to be frustrated when life is so frustrating already? When frustration is likely what brought them to therapy. He went on to clarify that the stuckness, the fear of change that creates the scenarios worthy of therapeutic work, has to be frustrated. It needs to be seen, seized, and held under the light. It has to be challenged and confronted. So tarot reading is similar. People who seek counsel through the cards are often also either looking for support through affirmation that they're on the right path, or looking to make a big life change and needing to be frustrated in their current mode of thinking or behaving so they might better understand what's stopping them. While there are a million and one reasons to not do a scary thing, tarot can give counter arguments, good luck charms, and life-giving templates to step into. The Three of Wands follows the Two of Wands with a sharply contrasting image between being in the comforts of a cohesive, settled life, like in the Two of Wands, and striking out on one's own into the haphazard, incoherent wilds of what Joseph Campbell called the uninterpreted life. So, the image itself is of a liminal stage of initiation into the mythic hero's quest, which is what Joseph Campbell talked about, like the sort of the archetype or the story that we often see played out in many of our books and mythology, where a hero, a sort of reluctant person, is called on a journey to, right, make this big quest. They go through ups and downs during that time. They find themselves, and often in the end, right, they sort of save the world. So that is what Joseph Campbell called, right, the mythic hero's quest. The path of someone whose dream doesn't align with the framework they're in or have been given, and who must therefore venture into the dark forest of original experience. The path towards something that's not yet cohesive, where you must do your own transcribing and arranging, and where, as Campbell said, you've got to work out your life for yourself. So yeah, if you find yourself standing between worlds, wanting to leap but feeling scared to, if your basic needs are met and then some, if you're asking questions about how to willingly break your own heart, or to be a beginner in a way that feels scary, or abandon a thing that would compromise the lifestyle you've come to depend on, well, you are a lucky one. And I think knowing that gives you a good rock to jump from. Right? That's not saying that the journey isn't hard, and it can feel like, right, that maybe the world is always against you or that things don't go your way. But in reality, right, like we are often the ones that can be in control. And you get to decide, right, do you want to leave your comfort of the village to venture into the dark forest in the first place? Um, so, right, this is sort of a different angle of coming at the card from this sort of like psychology sense. So let's jump into like an astrological reading on the card. So, like I talked about earlier, the Three of Wands, it is associated with the Sun in Aries. It is sometimes called the Lord of Established Strength, and I think that sort of moniker was given to it by the Golden Dawn creators of the tarot that they created. So it often depicts a woman shining at the top of a hill. She's a fiery ruler, another young version of the Aries Emperor. If you listen to last episode talking about the Two of Wands, we talked about that the Emperor is sort of depicted as a younger version of themselves in the Two of Wands. So the Emperor, right, is a major arcana card. So you can go ahead and look back at that if you want to kind of compare it to the image on the Two of Wands. But here in the Three of Wands, we have often the sun shining on the person and her realm. She's imbued with an endless supply of confidence, courage, and optimism. She also embodies her fair share of pride, nobility, and rulership. The sun is the source of heat and light, the center of our solar system and giver of life. In tarot, it symbolizes energy, enthusiasm, and enlightenment. From an astrological perspective, the sun represents the ego, will, and self. So again, this is something that is sort of embodied in the card and goes along well with Aries as we're in this sort of fiery season. As the picture of the sun in Aries, the young woman in the Three of Wands has every reason to believe that she's in a position of power. Again, they often are depicted as like standing on top of a hill, overlooking a landscape, that she is the master of her own destiny. She stands at the crest of a hill high above the rest of the world. The three cards symbolize creativity, and in this case, the young woman's creative powers have reached a new height, right? Again, sort of literally depicted in the card. Just as Aries' strength reaches a peak here at the height of its power in the second decan of the sign. While the pinnacle of the hill does represent a high level of command and control, the Three of Wands is still a minor arcana card, so we can assume that maybe, right, she's not as experienced or her strength hasn't been fully tested. If we think of the major arcana cards as sort of like stronger or sort of larger archetypes of things that are depicted in the minor arcana, then so we think of that as, okay, like you're on your way there. She waits for a ship to come in. She knows she's made good decisions, and she seems confident that her hopes are about to be realized. In a tarot reading, the Three of Wands symbolizes the creative drive that underlies the growth of a business or empire. And this card, it says, the second decan of Aries usually falls between March 31st and April 10th. And we are in that time as I'm recording this. So today, as I'm recording, it's April 1st. You'll hear this, I believe, on April 4th if you listen when it comes out. But it just feels very appropriate to be talking about cards when they are in their sort of strength in the season. And finally, we're going to go through a bit of the Fearless Tarot book by Elliot Adams. So talking about the Three of Wands, life is wide open and waiting for us. right? Life can feel like this large blank canvas. You were there to create a masterpiece that depicts your heart's desire. Despite your fears, nothing has been irreparably screwed up yet. There is still time. This card heralds the opportunity to take the courageous journey towards your bliss. The only caveat is that you must stop to identify what bliss means for you. This must occur before you can move on to new horizons. If you can name your bliss, you're on your way to claiming it. Are you clear about what you truly want out of life? If someone were to ask you what you want from life, would you respond to be happy without even knowing what that looks like for you? Do you believe you've messed up your life, thinking you can't get it back on track? Let me tell you something, that's just another lie from fear, and it's not true. The person on the Three of Wands is considering their future. They're often sort of richly dressed, implying that they're an important person, maybe in a small corner of the world, and yet they're feeling unfulfilled. Right? The person is not looking at us as we look at the card, but they are sort of looking out. They're thinking about their life. And it can look like they're looking over sort of like a vast desert sometimes, but if you look a little closer, it's not actually desert that's often depicted, but like the water, like the ocean with ships crossing across it. And we see often like shadows or like a glowing sunrise or sunset, and those are sort of this magical time of in between. Right? With sunrise and sunset are sort of our own limbo period in between, right? Maybe the vision that you have and the maybe like hopelessness feeling, like how, right, sitting in the in between of it and saying, okay, I have the dream, I have the vision, I know what I want out of life, I know what it is that maybe makes me happy, but, right, can I sit in the discomfort of not having it yet and also still working towards it? So it can ask you, this card, to stop, review, and think about where you want to go. Is there something left to achieve? The world is wide open and waiting. You just might have to leave your small island or your symbol of the comfort zone in order to find what that's going to look like. You have your goal, but you have to be really clear on what it is. When it becomes fixed in your mind, it will serve as your treasure map, guiding you to unbelievable riches. So I love that sort of like interpretation of the card there, that, right, we have to look out, we have to be very clear about what we want. And yeah, we have to think about that as we plan sort of our next move. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a card related to sort of this, this energy of the Three of Wands. So thinking about, right, how can we make our dreams clear? What do we need to do to, right, maybe take the next step on our journey? What messages do we need to hear? What can serve as a guiding post as we, again, move towards the future that we want? How do we know what we want? What does it look like? What does it feel like? How will we know when we've sort of figured out what that vision is? All right, and I pulled the Page of Chilies. I am pulling from the Desert Illuminations deck by Lindsay D. Williams, and the chilies are equivalent to wands. So this is actually a wands card that I just pulled here, which feels very appropriate for the wands energy that we're, thinking about today. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up in my tarot guidebook. Okay, so the Page of Chilies. So, right, we have Ace through 10, then we have Page, Knight, Queen, King, generally. Some decks change some of those names, but here we have the Page of Chilies. Dressed in a beautiful felt hat and cape embroidered with lizards, the Page of Chilies looks down at a large, fiery bundle of chili peppers. He is ready to discover fire and inspiration in unusual places. He has such intense energy that there is nothing stopping him from acting on his dreams. This is a card of creativity bubbling up from within. This energy and inspiration are causing restlessness inside you because you are not certain where to release it. The Page card is all about novice experiences. You may benefit by working with mentors or people who can help turn your incredibly creative abilities and ideas into reality. Well, I think that is a perfect sort of way to end this episode, right? If you are feeling like stuck or in this limbo period, right? It sounds like seeking some mentorship, some help, some folks to help you realize the vision that you have and that you don't have to do it all alone, right? Especially when we have really big dreams. So, thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.